So welcome home. A little spring cleaning. Get rid of the scrap metal pile behind the shed. Whitney's helping me load it up in the back of the Tundra. Gonna clean things up a little bit here today. Get some of this in. Do a little yard cleanup. So it's not exactly warm. It's like 45 or something, but the sun's out. It's not too windy, so yay. So Whitney helped me. We got the truck loaded up. Bed's pretty full. Feels a little floaty, but yeah. I head over to the scrapyard. Let's see what this thing weighs. Got a few pieces of clean aluminum. Most of it's just sheet metal and cast metal and stuff, brake rotors and whatnot. So, but spring cleaning, need to get it out of the way. Of course, I didn't get rid of anything that was any good. You know, I still got my spares. But it's good to get the back of the house cleaned up a little bit. Let's see what it's worth.
Hello.
Good morning. I stopped at the front already. They took my aluminum. So I got a ticket started for Andrew Hanna.
All right. All right, Andrew, you're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, what do you think, babe? It was a lot like work, wasn't it? Oh man, yeah. So we just unloaded all the stuff out of the back of the truck. Just gonna pull back on the scales here and see, get a way out ticket, I guess, and we'll go up to the front, see what it's all worth. So fun, fun, fun.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew Hanna again.
All right, Andrew. All right, you're all set. I'll see you back inside.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so our trip to the recycle yard today. A couple of crash beams, a bell housing for a Toyota, some other aluminum brackets, and then the rest of the stuff that was in the bed of the truck. Not a little bad little payday for a couple hours of tinking around work. And then we get a little memory of what we left, because little nephew Matthew, he loves the trains. So as we're pulling out of the recycling yard today, there's a couple of box cars on the rails. So yeah, it's good to be home, but those trips are never long enough. She must like me being home or something. Nachos for lunch. Help me load up all the scrap metal. Bringing me food while I'm relaxing in front of the TV, catching up on all my YouTube guys. This is great. Okay, so at this point I've been home for, I don't know, a little over 24 hours. And my sister-in-law says, my brakes are shaking really bad on my van. Do you have time to do them today? Because it's my day off. So here we are, back to working on a Grand Caravan. So anyway, we're gonna put some new rotors and pads on the front, because she said the steering wheel shakes really bad when she's braking, which typically is a good indicator that your front brake rotors are warped. So unfortunately, even if you take them and have them resurfaced, which almost nobody does anymore, but usually you end up with the same thing in a short amount of time, because the metal just gets worn thin and then it warps even easier. So we're just gonna go ahead and put some new pads and rotors on it. All right, so I'm sure there's a million videos out there about how to do brakes, but this is what I do. Got the wheel off. We're going to remove the bolts from the caliper slide pins, top and bottom. We're gonna remove the bolts from the caliper bracket, top and bottom. Make sure the slide pins slide in and out nice. We have some brake grease specific for this. If they don't move nice and free, make sure that they do. Make sure we grease them up. Everything slides and moves like it should. Also, make sure that the brake pads move freely in the caliper bracket. If the bracket has become rusted or corroded, it can pinch the pad. And if the pad's pinched, they're not working like they should. The pad should be able to move in that caliper bracket freely. So we'll go through that process and get this done. So remove the two 13mm bolts that were holding the caliper to the slide pins. And you can see these move in nice and freely. They're not sticking at all, so that's good. Also, our brake pads do move like they're supposed to. However, you can see the inner brake pad is worn much thinner than the outer. So looks like we're kind of good on the catch here anyway. Also, make sure you always support your brake caliper in one facet or another, that the brake hose isn't getting stretched or hung. If you stretch let the weight of the caliper stretch on the hose, it can cause it to delaminate or pull apart. Definitely not stuff you want to have happen. So we'll keep plugging away. A couple of 21mm bolt heads will get that caliper bracket off of there. A couple of good whacks with a hammer will knock the rotor out. And we'll work on putting things back together. Okay, so the new pads are in the brackets and they do move nice and easy. No problems there. So that's good. Move on to the rotor. Make sure you take brake parts cleaner and towel and clean that oily material off of them very well. So they oil them so that they don't rust while they're sitting on the shelves of the parts store. Extremely important that you get that oil off of there so that you get the best braking possible. So we'll grab some brake parts cleaner and a towel. We'll get that stuff cleaned off of there. Move on forward. So typically, what I do, so that you have something to hold that rotor for you, is I'll actually grab the rotor, get it out of its bag. I take the rotor and slide it on the studs inside out, just like that. So I can clean this side, and we'll spin it around and clean the other side. All right, so this is what we got. This is the inside of the brake rotor, the side that was facing towards the engine, or the inside of the car. And it's pretty deep ribbing in it, caused from rust pitting, I would guess. But you can see that was what was going on with the pad. Also, the pad's all ribbed up. The outside, if you were to look at the brakes from outside the car, you're like, oh man, the brakes look great. They're nice and smooth. Don't see any rust ridges. The inside tells a different story. So, that's what we got going on. Push those out of the way. Time to get some new stuff on here. Okay, so what I forgot to show you is I try, whenever possible, use a big screwdriver, get in between there, if you can get a hold of the other side of the pad or the rotor, and just gently put pressure on it to get the caliper pistons to slide in. So I'm just using the screwdriver, prying out towards myself, which is pushing the pistons in. And for whatever portion I can't do it with that, I then have these big C-channel style vice grips, and I'll squeeze the pistons in with those. So again, just a smooth, gentle pressure, not fast, not hard. And this is a dual piston van, so you got to be careful not to have one push out while you're trying to squeeze the other one. You want to try to do them together. A lot of times that means putting an old brake pad back in there and using to put even pressure on both pistons at the same time. So anyway, that's how I do it. And there's a couple of rotors and a set of pads. Start a scrap pile, spring run 2023. New brakes on the van. Hop in there, pump the pedal up, make sure them pistons are tight against them brake pads before you put it in gear, and away we go. So if you guys haven't driven one of these new Caravans, they're almost silly, honestly. They're whatever, close to 300 horsepower V6 and dual piston brakes on the front, and My mom and dad got theirs back in 2013, and my buddy Dylan and I almost immediately took it out to Colorado for the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb Race. And they're ridiculous. It's 300 horsepower minivan, which, you know, I see jokes about them, and I see somebody on the internet's actually gonna build a Hellcat minivan, but I don't know that you even need it. Although it would be really neat to see maybe one of the Road Trek superchargers put on one of these. And they make tons of kits for the Wrangler and stuff, so it's got to be doable. But yeah, nice smooth braking, nice and quiet. Taking it for a quick run around the block. Make sure we don't have any other issues going on for her. Thanks for watching.